Welcome back to the channel, Junior with Classic VW Bug. Today we're going to do some maintenance work for Sonny the Super Beetle. It took me almost 2 years to restore Sonny the Super Beetle, and at the time, when I was ready to start the car, I purchased a cheapo Chinese clone 34 Pic 3 car and just give it a test, because I didn't have at the time a 34 Pic 3 OEM core. The car was running so well that I decided to enjoy the car, drive it, go to the Volkswagen Fest, and not worry about restoring an OEM car, nor I didn't have one to restore, if that makes sense. But going to the shows, I was able to actually acquire a few, and today, that's the video that I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to take apart a uh, Solex 34 Pic 3. I'm going to disassemble it so that I can clean it and see if I can refurbish one that I can swap for this Chinese clone. For what I paid for this carp, I got my use out of it. I can't recall exactly if it was like $54 and change or almost $60 at the time that I purchased it. It's been now more than 2 years, so it has served its purpose. So the issue that I'm having now is that I set it to the proper idle speed. It works very smooth, and then I drive it and I drive it, and it works fine. But then it gets to the point where the settings go off. It lowers too much, or it's too rich. The RPMs go way over 1,000 RPMs. Other than that, in terms of the mechanical aspects, the engine has been performing very well. I am going to be using Cam Dip carburetor parts cleaner. This is my Solex 34 Pic 3 OEM cart from Volkswagen. It's a little dirty and filthy. Before I dip it in here, I will give it a little cleanup. I'm going to use some penetrating oil to soak some of the parts. Then I'll take some brake cleaner, clean it to just remove any of the remnants of the PB blaster. We're gonna spray some there. So as I am looking at it, I can already see that I may be missing some components of it. I'll bring you back when I begin to take it apart. So this is my Solex 34 Pic 3. I did a pretty thorough cleaning. I'm missing some parts, but we'll take care of that once we have cleaned it. I think it looks pretty decent. We got some of that excess grime off of it so that our chemical fluid that is going to clean it does not get as much contaminated. So let's go ahead and begin the disassembly process. I'm going to just begin in no particular order, so I'm just going to begin by removing some of the bolts and pieces and setting them aside, and then eventually we will go ahead and dip them into the chem dip. Okay, removing the main jet cover plug, also removing the upper top of the carburetor, removing all of these bolts right here. Using a flat head screwdriver, a couple of taps to remove it. Now, once we get this out, we'll remove the float valve. Here we're removing the vacuum diaphragm pump. Couple of taps, and we'll get it out here shortly. Here it is. There's a spring in here that when you're removing this here, it will actually spill out as a projectile if you are not being cautious. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the heating element. First we begin by removing the cover retaining ring. Also, there is a spring in here. You give it a couple of taps, make sure that you don't lose the spring, although your kit comes with a new one, but just in case. Inspect the heating element for any physical damage. Worn out, remove the plastic cap from here. Inspect the parts inside. Make sure everything is in functional conditions before you continue your work, and then just fiddle with it a little bit until you can get the diaphragm piece out. Save this gasket so you can compare it with the one that comes in the package, and when you look into the package it'll be easy for you to get it out. Remove the clip for the float. So you can see in this clip that I am pointing in which direction the clip should be reinstalled. I went to get the flow out, but I had some issues. It was stuck there. It was not coming out. So I opted to, later on in the video, you'll see that I added some penetrating oil and I let it sit, and then later on I was able to release it and remove it with ease. Removing the jet air corrector with the emulsion tube. Now we remove the pilot jet. Now let's go ahead and remove the pump cover screws and all of its components. Removing the bypass screw and also the volume control screw right here in the same location. So we get that one out. Now we get the volume control out. Okay, friends. So the next step, using the chem dip for carbs parts cleaner. For best result and longer cleaner life, remove loose dirt and excess grease before soaking parts in chem dip. So that's what we did. So I'm gonna do a 30-minute and see if that works. If it doesn't work, then I'll dip it back in and allow it to be in there longer. I don't know how much room I have for it. Just like that, maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Work with that first. And I'm going to cover that just in case. So I left it instead of 30 minutes for a full hour. So I'm going to go ahead now and remove it and then rinse it with clear water. And then we're going to put this other part here with some of the bolts and pieces that we have left to dip them in the chem dip. I feel like that can be left in there longer, but I'm going to grab a wire brush since this actually recommends that we can use a wire brush to scrub some of the excess out. And while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and put this part in. So I'm going to go inside first and give that a quick rinse so that I can work with it. And I'm going to move the chem dip over here, set it on the floor. Okay, friends, so let's take a look inside the carburetor. Look how oxidized that looks in there. So I'm going to take a die grinder and maybe install a brass uh, wire wheel and clean it all as good as I can. And I think that I might just submerge it one more time after I do that to get it as clean as possible. So here in the clip, I'm using a small die grinder with a brass wheel wire brush. So when I use this type of tool, I do not apply too much pressure and I set my die grinder to the lowest speed possible and I let the wheel do its job. So if you're doing this, so I would stress the fact that do not apply too much pressure. Also using some purple degreaser to clean some of the excess dust of the grinding so that I can then rinse it and have it nicely finished. Okay, it's assembly time. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with this lower part of the carburetor. I think that I would recommend that you sort all of your parts. For ease of explanation, I have labeled each part so that I can tell you what part that is as I install it. So I'm going to begin by installing the main jet in here. So this is the main jet. So that one right there, that's the main jet that's installed. Main jet cover plug with the washer and install that here as well. That's going to go right here on the side, right there like so. And this is a number 14 millimeter, the installation. And since I am sideways like that, I'll go ahead and install the bypass screw. And I screw that in all the way until it sits without applying too much pressure to it. Now install the volume control screw and pre-looped it also. And for that, we're going to use this little screwdriver right here. And again, I'm snugging it all the way in until it sits, but I am not going to apply any type of pressure to it. That's already seated all the way in. Next, I'm going to go ahead and install the accelerator pump injector, which goes right here. This is this one right here. And with this one here, you want to make sure that it is aligned right in between this right here and this wall over here. I think that's pretty good right there. I'm going to give it a small tap. I'm going to go ahead and install the air correction jet with the emulsion tube. I also pre-looped that with a little bit of oil. That's in. So I'm going to go ahead and install the pump diaphragm, the spring, and the pump cover. So we got to make sure that we have the proper order for this. So you want to put your spring in, and the shape of it looks like a cone. You want to put the wider side of the spring inward towards the base of the pump. Then you want to take your diaphragm, your pump diaphragm, and you're going to put that right on top of that. And we're going to align this here with the center of the pump cover, just like so. So that's in, and now we take this bigger flat head screwdriver and we'll snug it a little bit more, like so, like so, like so. That's in. Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside for a little bit, and I'm going to grab the carburetor upper part, which is this one right here, and I'm going to work with the installation of the float valve and float valve washer. So I'm going to put this right in here now. So I'm just going to snug that. That's done deal. Next, I am going to install the vacuum diaphragm. So this is going to go in like this. And I'm going to align that little hole right there in the gasket with that and here. And then the next thing is going to be the vacuum spring that goes right here, and the vacuum diaphragm cover. So this guy here, you see how it has that little extra hole in there? So we're going to align that hole with this pin here. Just like so. And we have two smaller screws that I'm going to put the two smaller in the bottom right here. And the longer one on top, just like so. Okay. Okay, next we're going to install the plastic cap, and it has this little guy that goes right into that one right there, so there's no way that you can miss installing this in the proper fashion. So that's going to go right in there, like so. We're going to install the choke heating element. Just a footnote here, when you have a Solex heating element, it has this little line here that when you preset your carb butterfly, you can get a good head start at aligning it with this little mark right here. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and preset my choke heating element to about right there. And about right there. And then we're going to take the cover for the heating element. This is called the cover retaining ring. We're going to set it right on top of that. We're going to snug these. And I'm not going to tie them really hard yet. Just going to snug them in there. Like so. And then leave that like that. So there is a line right here. I don't know how well we can see that in the camera, but there's a little line right there. Right in there, and I'm aligning it between this line here and this little raised tiny boss. There's like a little bump right there. And that's install. This is install. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our bottom part of our carburetor and we're going to install the float. I opted to use the original Solex because it's in good shape, and I did not use the replacement one that came in the rebuild kit. So now we're going to take the pin right here, and we're going to put this pin right in here to hold that in place. It's pretty much it right there. Last but not least, we're gonna take our gasket, and you wanna make sure you get your correct gasket when you are installing it here for your carburetor. One thing that I would recommend, which is something that I like to do, is when you remove your old one, keep it so that when you look in your package of your rebuild kit, you can get it right away. And then that's gonna go right there. Notice how all of these holes actually align. And the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take this piece here and install that right here. I'm gonna go ahead and begin by installing these by hand. Okay, and last but not least, I'm gonna go ahead and install this pilot jet that goes right here. Let's go ahead and put that guy in. And I'm gonna go ahead now and install this spring right here. Let's see. Okay. All right, so just a quick tip on the butterfly setting. If it's too close, you'll have a hard time, starting your car when it's cold. And if it's too open, then you will also have a hard time. So kind of like the rule of thumb that I like to follow is that I like to keep that butterfly to about close to 1/8 of an inch or maybe 3/16 away from this inside diameter of your carburetor, just like so. If you look in the original OEM, we have a line right here, right there. Maybe I can point it with this right there. And I'm aligning it between this dimple here and this little line right here. And you can see that. Okay. And then the other thing I'm going to show you here is that I'm also going to preset this here. Actually, that's really close to where I need it. So what I'm going to do is finish the adjustment. So you want to set this here in your lowest spot right there. And this is just my starting setup. It's almost barely touching it, so you can see right there. And so you can see the butterfly, it's open now, and that's right there. Okay, so this part, it's done. So all I have got left to install is this electromagnetic cutoff valve that I am going to borrow from my clone Chinese El Cheapo carb that I currently have installed in my car. And also, I am missing adjustable belt crank here that I am going to also borrow from another carburetor that I purchased this weekend at the Volkswagen Fest. So I'm going to go ahead and get that and install it. So I'm going to go ahead and install this part right here. And I believe that goes like so. Like that. And then we're going to put this bell crank right here. And one thing that I will point out is that there is also like a little line right in there that I'm going to set to the middle right there. We're gonna take this nut right here and install it right here. There we go. And now we grab this little washer right here and this bolt, and I'm going to tie this right here. We're going to use a screwdriver. Okay, and it's going to go in like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and use this number 11 wrench to tie this here. Okay. And I gotta go get the circlip to put it on here. Okay, so let's go ahead and install the circlip in here, and this should be done and ready to be installed. But that's going to be a video for another occasion. So we'll just go ahead and install it. Okay, friends, so that's pretty much it for the rebuild of the Solex 34 Pict 3. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Junior out.